Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're talking about something that's on a lot of people's minds, especially if you're looking at real estate right now. Is this the right time to jump in, or should you wait? Wait for prices to really hit, rack bottom. We're going to dig into that whole idea, the belief that buyers should just hold out for prices to drop even more.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And honestly, it's full of these psychological traps, isn't it? So, our goal today is to look at Muskoka's real estate cycles, figure out why finding that exact bottom is so tricky, and really unpack the feelings behind why buyers might be hesitating. We'll use some history, some market psychology to kind of challenge that idea that waiting is always the best strategy.
Okay, so let's start with these market cycles. We've got about 30 years of data from Muskoka, and it shows some pretty clear patterns. There were, four main downturns since the late 90s? You had the late 90s, kind of a slower market, lots of inventory. Boomers weren't moving much. First-time buyers were delayed.
Right. Then 2008, 2009, the financial crisis effect, buyers hit pause. Prices in Muskoka didn't tank like elsewhere, maybe fewer speculators then.
And then more recently, 2018, 2019, mortgage stress tests, some provincial taxes that cooled things, especially at the higher end in Muskoka.
Yeah, definitely felt that. And then, of course, 2022, 2023, those sharp interest rate hikes. Affordability just dropped. That really cooled the cottage market. Investors, end users, lots of people just decided to wait.
But here's the flip side of the recovery. What consistently seems to bring the market back? Well, interest rates stabilizing or coming down is a big one. Restores confidence, affordability. We also saw remote work boosting cottage demand post-pandemic.
Right.
Intergenerational wealth helping younger buyers.
Uh-huh. Tourism growth, people really prioritizing that lifestyle. And yeah, boomers starting to downsize or sell those legacy properties.
And the data really hammers home the interest rate connection, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Low rates tend to mean more sales, rising prices. High rates, sales slow, inventory piles up.
It's fascinating how regular some of those patterns are. You see these big national or global things cause a pause, sure, but it's often the rate stabilization plus those big life shifts, moving for lifestyle, generational changes that really kickstarts the recovery. It just shows how much Muskoka is tied to, well, life changes, and confidence plays a huge role in those market peaks, sometimes maybe even more than just pure affordability.
Yeah, confidence is key.
And we've seen the buyers change over time too, right? Gen X, boomers, the millennials really stepping up. Now even Gen Z starting to look, often with family help. It really underscores that Muskoka real estate isn't just numbers. It's seasonal, it's emotional, it's tied to how people want to live.
Okay, so let's get to the core of it, this idea of timing the market perfectly, waiting for the bottom. What do our sources really say about trying to pinpoint that moment?
Well, they basically say it's mostly an illusion. If you look at Muskoka right now, you see listings going up. A lot are estate sales, people having to sell, not necessarily timing it strategically. Buyers are cautious, maybe expecting prices to fall more, looking for that amazing deal. The whole mood is just careful.
Right, and the key insight seems to be you never know it's the bottom until you're past it.
Exactly. The only real sign the bottom happened is when things start selling again, prices start ticking up. By the time most people feel comfortable jumping back in, they're often competing again, and the best deals are gone.
It's like that saying about investing, right? Time in the market beats timing the market. Sounds like it applies here too, especially in a place like Muskoka. So waiting isn't just doing nothing. It can actually work against you.
Absolutely. Prices might dip a tiny bit more, maybe, but then borrowing costs could jump up again, wiping out any perceived saving.
Or you lose out on the right property because someone else moves faster.
Or you miss the turn completely and find yourself back in bidding wars. And maybe the biggest risk is just getting stuck, analysis paralysis. You wait, and life just keeps happening around you.
So this race to the bottom mentality we see sometimes, what's driving that?
Seems like two big things. Unrealistic expectations, meaning, well, impatience. Sellers may be hoping for last year's peak prices. When that doesn't happen, they get frustrated, maybe scared, and start dropping prices reactively. It becomes a cycle.
How so?
Well, that impatience leads to maybe poor pricing decisions, which then makes buyers think, oh, I can wait, things are still falling, so they hold back even more, fewer showings, properties sit longer. It just feeds itself. Vicious cycle. And the data, the sale volumes, the sale to list price ratios right now, they reflect that holding pattern. Buyer hesitation is clear. Active listings are higher than they were.
That point about frustration is interesting. Do the sources give examples of sellers making reactive price drops that actually hurt them more in the end? Not just getting a lower price, but other consequences.
The sources don't detail specific stories like that, but the overall historical pattern is pretty clear. Sellers who panicked and slashed prices during downturns often locked in lower values than if they'd held on for stabilization or used a different strategy. It's easy to mistake any price drop for the market bottom, but often it's just one seller getting tired. And that tends to attract bargain hunters, not necessarily the serious buyer who loves the place.
Okay, so peeling back the numbers, what does this mean for the individual? For you listening?
Mhm.
It really comes down to the human side of things, doesn't it? Real estate isn't just spreadsheets. It's deeply psychological.
Definitely. And there's a difference between buying your main home driven by necessity, job, family, and recreational property like in Muskoka. That's more about discretionary income, sure, but also emotional connection, lifestyle, maybe remote work now too.
Yeah, the sources had some great examples, like a couple in Bracebridge might delay selling in a down year,
Hmm.
but eventually their last kid graduates and they sell. Because, as the source said, life doesn't stop for politics. Life moves on.
Or that Toronto family example. Maybe they sat out 2022, 2023 because rates were high. But come 2025, they're realizing they're missing summer memories with their kids. Suddenly, time becomes more important than timing. They might buy even if rates haven't dropped massively.
That's the big theme, isn't it? People adapt. They don't wait forever. Families grow, needs change, confidence rebuilds, maybe slowly at first. I love that quote. In Muskoka, real estate isn't about speculation. It's about belonging. That need doesn't just vanish.
Which brings up a critical point. What happens when all those hesitant buyers finally decide it is time to act? We know from the data, especially after the rate hike started in 2022, that demand builds up. It's pent up.
Yeah.
When confidence returns, even quietly, you often see a quick surge, multiple offers come back, places sell faster.
Like 2020. Right,
Yeah.
that pause turned into a massive boom almost overnight.
Exactly, because people decided they didn't want to wait to live their lives anymore.
So putting it all together, the cycles, the illusion of the bottom, the human psychology, what's the smart move for listeners right now?
Well, the conclusion from the research seems pretty direct. It says, if you find the right property at a price you can afford, with terms that make sense, that's the deal.
Right. It doesn't have to be the absolute lowest price ever recorded. The real deal is the one that fits your life right now.
Precisely. And for those selling like estate sales, the advice is act while you still have choices. Letting a listing linger makes it look stale, attracts lowball offers, and just costs money and emotional energy holding on to it.
It reminds me of that proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Mm.
The second best time is today. Maybe the same applies to finding your place in Muskoka.
From my perspective, looking at the analysis, this kind of market phase requires discipline, clarity, a long-term view. It's about being strategic, not just reacting to headlines or fear. For everyone involved, agents, clients, it means realistic expectations. Understand why you're buying or selling. Is it a need, a want? What are the real timelines? And lead with data. Try to keep emotion in check. And honestly, there's opportunity now. When prices are softer, smart investors often buy. When others pull back, leaders can step forward. You don't have to get caught in that race to the bottom.
That was a really insightful deep dive. It really clarifies things around trying to time that elusive market bottom. It seems pretty clear that even though the headlines can feel negative and things seem slow, just waiting might not be the smartest move.
Indeed. Markets always change. They always cycle. And as we've discussed, the people who navigate it best usually understand the cycles, the psychology, and most importantly, their own needs and timeline.
So maybe here's a final thought for you to consider. If owning a place, maybe in Muskoka, is truly about belonging, stability, creating your family's story, what's the real cost of putting that dream on hold? Just hoping for a slightly lower price point that history shows is almost impossible to predict perfectly anyway.